We want to make sure that everyone is on that wants to join. I think we had about 400 people sign up. Wow, which is awesome. Maybe before we get going, I'll start talking about some other things that Choose Love is offering. We are actually offering a book club, which, you know, when I thought about this, and actually my mom and I are doing it together, and I pictured like maybe, I don't know, maybe 30 people and us on a Zoom discussing incredible books, and almost immediately 500 people joined up. So this is going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And there's some incredible books out there, some incredible new research. So we're really going to be exploring together. And let's see, we've got vlogs, we have podcasts, we have webinars, lots of really, really great things for you all. If you have not been to our website, chooselovemovement.org, please go. If you signed up for our program previously, you will have to go back and re-register because it's on a brand new platform. It's digital now with corresponding Google Slides. We have a special back to school unit specifically designed to meet kids and educators where they are coming back in the fall to get everyone back to baseline before you go in to social and emotional learning. So please check that out. We also have a version 2 coming out of the program, which we're really excited about, which is a direct, thoughtful response to the coronavirus. We're in a brand new world. How could we have a same program? There are lots of things that we needed to address. So that is being rolled out now as we speak. We have Courage already online, so you can check that out. Gratitude coming on within 2 weeks. And by the end of October, we'll have Forgiveness and Compassionate Action well before you need them. So we're just really excited about that. We're here for you. If any of you are educators, we are here to, yeah, awesome. You know, I would love to, if you're thinking about doing Choose Love, which is a lifespan social and emotional learning program, love to talk to your educators about that. Today, I've been doing a lot of parent community talks, so with schools who have already made the decision to launch, and now they want their parents and communities on board because we have those programs as well. So check us out. Check us out on social media. In fact, today on Twitter, I released a short video. I think it's about 10 seconds long. That is our entire neuroscience model. It's simple, but it's profound, and it can change your life. So very exciting. I'm so excited to see all of you, and I can't wait to bring Jessica Ortner on. Tapping has been life-changing for me, and I want it to be life-changing for you too. And there's no better time to do it than now, when we're all facing uncertainty, when we all have a little bit at least of anxiety and stress about the future.
Scarlett, I know we're going to wait a few minutes before we officially start, but I want to let you know I'm here.
Hi, Jessica. Well, it's 7:30, so let's get started because I don't want to waste a second. I am so excited about tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, Jessica. From almost day one after the Sandy Hook tragedy, which is why I'm doing Choose Love, to be part of the solution. Your family reached out, Nick, your brother who lives in Newtown, you live in Newtown, and offered to come to my house and to sit with my family and tap with us. And I was familiar with tapping, but to have Nick in my living room tapping on, you know, on grief, on trauma, on significant loss. And the interesting thing was, it was with me, it was with my father actually, and JT, who was 12 years old at the time, and he was doing a generalized tapping, and we were all doing it. And I think the most amazing thing to me is that even in that moment, if you can imagine what I was feeling and what I was going through, just the worst of the worst, I felt relief. I felt relief in every way. And I believe in it so much with all my heart. I will admit, even to you, Jessica, that, you know, even though we've offered tapping with the Choose Love Movement program, it's been, it's kind of been an, what have we called it? Along with some other programming, you know, kind of on a different page. And if you want to do tapping, you know, you all were wonderful enough to write this whole program for us that aligned with the character values and the formula, which is so amazing. But it was separate. And now with COVID, you know, this is a brand new world. We all need as much trauma help as possible, trauma techniques, relief for anxiety, relief for stress, relief for uncertainty. And I don't know any better relief personally than tapping. So I just wanted to kind of give my own personal story and why I believe so strongly in this. In our version 2, tapping is right there in the program because it works. And I know that you're going to talk about how it's used with the military and how there's so much science behind it. We're so blessed to have you, Jessica. Thank you so much. This is Jessica Ortner of the Tapping Solution. And I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can walk us through. And I will kind of be monitoring the chat. And maybe at the end, there'll be time for some questions. So take it away, Jessica. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Scarlett. And thank you everybody who is watching this live. And even if you're watching the recording, thank you for being here. You know, there's so much going on. Life can feel incredibly overwhelming. So the fact that you're taking the time to learn something new, to take care of yourself is so inspiring. And I hope that you really give yourself credit for showing up, because that is just truly massive. So my intention is to help you deal with anxiety and overwhelm, and to also learn this technique so that you can support others. So let's talk about tapping. Now, I have the chat open here too. I want this to be a conversation. I am here to help you. So the first question I have is, how many people here are new to tapping? If you're new, just write new. If you know tapping and you're just like, I am overwhelmed and I just need to tap, you can just write tap. Oh, I see lots of news. That's great. A few taps. All right. Well, for those who know tapping, I'm still going to go over some of the basics, which I think is so helpful, because the more that we can really understand the basics, the better time we have communicating to other people when we want to share what tapping is all about. So tapping is a really powerful stress relief technique where you're tapping on acupressure points on your body. Now, these are acupressure points that help your body relax. Oftentimes when people are anxious, they go like this, or they put their hand on their chest, or you find them going like this. We intuitively know that these points help us relax. Now, what we're doing with these points is we're actually getting clear on the thought that's creating the anxiety while we tap on these acupressure points. So it's the opposite of, we don't jump into positive thinking. We actually take a moment to honor where we are, to really bring up the feeling that we're having, and we start doing the tapping. Now, to explain why that's so important, I think it's important to take a step back and to really begin to understand how stress works. Stress is not an experience that we just have in our brain. We experience it with our whole body. We get, and especially kids, we get that stomach ache. We get that pressure in our chest, tension in our neck, a headache. we feel emotions with our whole body. And when we're having a stress response, what's happening is it might start with a thought, but all of a sudden your whole body begins to react. So you're reading the news, you're thinking about tomorrow's virtual learning class, you're thinking about the future, all of the uncertainty. All of a sudden that thought triggers this very physical experience. It triggers the fight and flight response. It triggers a response that is really meant to save our lives. Because if we are on a hike and we come across a rattlesnake, we are meant to feel stressed. We are meant to have that panicked response and jump and get out of the way. But the problem is we're sitting at home, we're faced with this uncertainty, we're having that same panicked response, but we're not jumping away, we're not running, we're not fighting, we're not using up that energy. Instead, it's just this buildup of stress and tension in our body, and suddenly our neck hurts, our back hurts, our stomach hurts. So what we need to do is get really clear on the thought that's creating the physical anxiety. When we get clear on that thought and we begin to tap on these acupressure points, it sends this calming signal to the brain saying, hey brain, you're safe. Even though you're having this thought right now and right here, you're safe. It gets you back into your body. It allows you to relax. And that's exactly what we need. Because what tends to happen when the world is changing so fast is our default is stress. We have that stress response. And when we're feeling stressed, it's hard to be innovative. It's hard to be creative. It's hard to be resourceful and problem solve. I mean, how many of you guys have been in the shower and gotten a brilliant idea? Usually those moments when we can relax, that we really have a breakthrough. So what we're doing here is we're, again, getting clear on that stress so we can tell our body that we're safe. A component of tapping that's really important is acceptance. Accepting where we are. Because how often have you been mad about something and now you're also mad that you're mad about it? Like, I can't believe they triggered me, or I can't believe I feel so stressed. The moment that we can begin to say, even though this is how I feel, I accept myself, it's like your whole body can exhale. So tapping is this really beautiful combination of these Chinese acupressure points and modern psychology, in the sense that we are learning now the importance of not fighting your feelings or pushing them down, but about giving them a voice and finding a healthy way to express them. So I'm gonna teach you guys how to tap. I wanna have an experience around tapping. Let me tell you a little bit about the research and science around it. There has been so much happening just in the last 5 years when it comes to research. A lot of universities are showing interest. There's a lot of new studies in the process. But one that came out recently that I find so fascinating is in this study, they grabbed 3 groups of people. And one group was doing tapping. Another group was reading about stress relief. So this is when you read that blog post, you read that motivational book about the concept of stress relief. And then the third group was just reading a magazine. Well, after an hour, what they did is actually they measured before and after cortisol levels. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and you can measure it pretty easily with a saliva test. And they found that the people who were just reading magazines, their stress actually went up by 2%. I don't know what they were reading, but nowadays you read anything and it's stressful. So their cortisol went up by 2%. The people who were reading about stress relief, reading about how to reframe their thinking, the stress did go down by 19%. Cortisol went down by 19%. The people who did the tapping, the decrease in cortisol was 43%. So 43% in an hour is truly significant. And we also have a wonderful app. My brothers and I created the Tapping Solution app. And the reason I bring this up here is that it's been really fascinating because with this app, there's a lot of free tapping meditations. A lot of people are using these tapping meditations, and they're using a scale from 0 to 10 to measure their progress. So you measure when you start a tapping, and then you measure yourself when you're done. And we have found that after 260,000 people used the tapping meditation to relieve stress, the average decrease of stress was 41% in 9 minutes. 41% in 9 minutes, it's pretty incredible. And so here we're seeing that when we tap, we're really having a physical response. The body is responding. We're lowering cortisol. Patty says, I've been using the app every day. Oh, I love that. So with that, let's do some tapping. Let me teach you the basics. And then let's actually do it. Because I think all of us, including myself, would love to end the day with just letting go of some of the stress. And so Deborah says, what's the app called? It's the Tapping Solution app. You can find it on Google Play for your Android or in the Apple Store. All right, guys. So with tapping, now let me talk through the basics of tapping. All right. I'll walk you through how it works, and then we can begin to have an experience together. So when you start tapping, you always start with the setup statement. And the setup statement sets you up for the process by acknowledging how you feel and allowing yourself to have acceptance. So what we do here is we say, even though I'm anxious, and the more specific you can be, the better. So even though I'm anxious about tomorrow's Zoom meeting, or even though I'm annoyed that people aren't muting themselves or whatever it is, even though this is coming up, I accept myself and how I feel. Or simply, I accept myself. I accept how I feel. It's a moment of saying, this is how I feel. And even though this is how I feel, I accept these feelings. And that in itself is so powerful. If you're working with children, the concept of accepting how they feel might not quite work for, say, a 5-year-old, but you can say to them, even though I'm really angry, I'm still a good kid. Right? So it's a level of saying, even though you have these feelings, you accept yourself, you're still a good person. So you tap on the side of the hand when you say that 3 times. And again, I see you can take notes, but we're also going to have an experience, and then you're really going to get it. So the next point is the eyebrow point, and it's where the hair of your eyebrow begins. So sometimes people tend to go like this, but you can tap on one side of your body or on both sides. So I'm just using 2 fingers and tapping lightly where the hair of my eyebrows begin. Then follow your eyebrows until you find yourself on the side of the eye, and this is right on the bone. There you go. So right on the bone, we're tapping lightly. I'm using 2 fingers. The next point is underneath the eye, and you again follow the bone until you're on the bone. I'm sorry, yeah, you follow until you're underneath the eye on the bone. Great. And then we have underneath the nose, between the nose and the lip. Then we have underneath the mouth, which is the crease between the lip and the chin. Does anyone else see that someone's sharing their screen? Okay, so let's see here. Who's this person? If you just logged on, make sure that you are not sharing your screen by accident. So this is the chin between the lip and the chin, the crease. Then we have the collarbone point, which if you feel your collarbone at the top and you go down an inch on either side, you're gonna hit it. And a quick trick for those watching in Zoom, if you click on my video and you put pin video, it'll put my video right at the top. So that's an easy fix. So just go to my video, top right hand, and say pin video. All right, great. So the next point is underneath the arm, and it's a hand width from your armpit. So it's right where your bra strap tends to lie. Again, a hand width from your armpit. And then we have the top of the head, right at the top of the head. Great. Wonderful, guys. So that is 1 round. And when you continue, you go back to the eyebrow point and you keep going through. So I'm gonna do some tapping here. Let me just fix my screen here in Zoom. I'm gonna pin my video again, and let me make sure I open the chat so I can see your questions. All right, wonderful. So I'll do it one more time, kind of quickly, and then we'll have an experience. So we have the side of the hand on either side. We have the eyebrow point where the hair of the eyebrow begins. Then we have the side of the eye on the bone. Then we have underneath the eye, underneath the nose, underneath the mouth, the collarbone point, underneath the arm, and on top of the head. Wonderful. I love to see you guys all tapping with me. So that is one round. So before we go into having an experience, Scarlett, do you have any questions? Anything I should cover before we have an experience? I don't see you.
No, I think that this is great. There was one thing that I forgot to say, and it's that in the moment while I was tapping with Nick, right after the tragedy, I was thinking how incredible this would be for kids, because you made the comment that the relief came within 9 minutes, but what I experienced is that the relief comes within a few minutes, and that's what kids that I've seen doing it in schools have also experienced. It's pretty quick. What else can give you that relief from pain, discomfort, any kind, physical, mental, or emotional, that quickly? That's not, you know, a pill or something that you can do to yourself. It's so empowering. So it's all great. Thank you.
No, thank you. It's so true. I mean, we're really surprised with how much kids love it. So sometimes people ask me, how do I convince my child to try? It depends on the age, but young kids, they don't care about research. You're doing something physical. So it's not, if you're telling them to visualize, it might be trickier than doing something physical, which they're so used to. With kids that are a little bit older, 13, 14, if you're a parent or a teacher, they just don't like to do anything that you say in general. So what we love is the Tapping Solution app, because we have some free tapping meditations, and with their phone and with the app, they seem to love it. So I've had a lot of parents say, thank you for the app, because I've been nagging my kids to try tapping and they wouldn't try, but something about following along with someone else is really helpful. So the app is good for older kids, but with little kids, you can learn how to do it yourself, and they tend to really like it. And then they'll come back and say, can we do that tapping thing again? So
you know what I found, and Sheila Sanzi says that she's done it with high school and they love it. I found that mostly it's our own fears that keep us from trying things with kids. I've seen it with Choose Love. I've seen it with tapping. I've seen some parents, educators that go, oh, well, the older kids are going to think Choose Love is corny. The tapping, I don't know this. I don't think kids are going to like it. But give kids a chance, because they're not as self-conscious as you think. And especially now, people just want to find relief. And we're doing it in negative ways, and this is a positive way. This is a skill and tool that we adults, us big kids, but also kids can use anytime, any place, for almost anything to find relief. I don't know what else really on the planet is available like that. That's why I'm so excited about it.
I love that. Thank you for that, Scarlett. And I love how I mentioned the little rebelliousness sometimes from teenagers that I hear from parents. But here, I mean, reading from Shannon that, I have had an algebra teacher tell me that she does this with her students before tests, and it helps them calm them and prep them for the test. And Patty says teens that I work with love tapping and Choose Love. So, yes, like to your point, Scarlett, it's time to give them a chance. And we're often so surprised, because we are so desperate to feel better, that we're willing to try something that might look a little bit different. And then you experience the results and you can decide for yourself. But I love hearing, like Colleen says, I've done it with kindergarten, and often they would initiate it on their own after they've learned it. So you're really giving them a tool that they can do on their own, which is so inspiring. So when it comes to tapping, when you want to have an experience, you want to work with yourself, you want to work with someone else, it's always helpful to follow a tapping meditation, but maybe on the spot you don't have one. And so what you can do in that case is you always start by giving yourself an opportunity to voice how you feel. So if you have a student coming to you and they're already telling you the story of how they're feeling, now you say to them, okay, I'm hearing your story. I want you to tell your story again, but this time let's tap on the points. Okay, so just tell me what happened while you tap on the points. And all of a sudden they're replaying that stress, but now they're tapping, they're calming their body. And you find that as they continue to tell the story, they begin to feel more relaxed, and often they begin to be able to see a different way of looking at this or begin to see a solution. So you always want to start with tapping with where you are. When you start tapping, it's often helpful to measure yourself on the 0 to 10 scale. Now this is subjective, but it's a good kind of marker for your own. So 10 is really intense, 0 is you feel totally fine. And you want to move to the positive when you feel like it can land, when you feel like you're below a 5. Now don't take that number so literally, because it is subjective. One person's 5 can be different than another person's 5. But the point is, if you're upset and I tell you, just calm down, will that ever actually help you calm down? I mean, I don't think in the history of this planet, anyone has ever said, just calm down, and the person hearing that actually calmed down. When we are feeling anxious, when we just try to be positive too fast, we're not validating the experience that we're having. So what we want to do is we want to weed before we plant. We do want to plant, but again, we want to weed. We want to honor what's there. We want to remove that and make space to begin to look at something differently. And so usually with tapping, we do a few rounds of saying how we feel, and then we slowly start moving to something more empowering. So with that, let's have an experience. Now, if I was tapping with someone one-on-one, I tend to get as specific as I can. So tell me what the worry is. You're worried about having to teach virtually. Well, what is it about teaching virtually that causes anxiety? I don't feel like I can connect with my students and I feel overwhelmed. The more specific you can get, the more powerful it is. But sometimes tapping on your own to something general, like we do in the app, your brain still makes those connections. But I just want to state that because it is helpful to get clear, because oftentimes we think, especially when we're overwhelmed, everything feels overwhelming. And when someone asks you what's wrong, the answer can be really broad and really big, and it's hard to feel peace or find a solution. But when we begin to tap, we can begin to ask ourselves questions. The more specific we can, it can be really empowering to finally say, oh, this is what has really been bothering me. And that's when we tend to have a great breakthrough. So today we're talking about overwhelm and anxiety. So we're going to do some tapping on anxiety. We're going to kind of mix the two of them together.
Can I add something, Jessica, when you were saying that? So I'll go back to my initial experience. I mean, I tapped before, but when I was tapping in the moment, you would think that I would be tapping on grief, right? Or mourning. I didn't know what to tap on. I just started tapping. And it turned out that I ended up tapping on anger. And I would not have thought that I would be doing that. I wasn't, if you asked me what I was feeling, I would never have said angry. But that came out in the tapping. And then what came out was that I was using that shield of anger to protect myself so that I didn't have to feel the feelings and really look at what had happened. It was so interesting. And that was within, I want to say, 5 minutes of tapping that came out. So you're right. I just wanted to validate that and share a little bit of my experience. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that's why sometimes when you begin to tap, you start one place and then something else comes up and then you get clarity. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is they think that they have to analyze their problem before they start tapping. They think they need all of the answers, when being specific helps, but sometimes you start to tap and suddenly you realize, like Scarlett did, I'm angry, or this is really what I'm feeling. And I often hear that people talk about crying or tears running down their eyes. And again, it doesn't have to happen every time. It doesn't always have to be so intense. Sometimes it just feels relaxing. But oftentimes there's a little bit of intensity before it goes down. So someone might say, oh, I started tapping and then it actually felt more intense, and then I felt better. And the reason that happens is because as they were tapping, they actually got clear on what really was bothering them, which sometimes is different from what they measured earlier. So sometimes if you're tapping with someone and they have a spike and they actually look like they feel a little more upset, it's usually because you're in the perfect spot. You're in the place where you're giving them space to express their feelings and validate them. And we have to stop fearing our emotions. We need to stop fearing tears. We need to give ourselves the room to grieve, to feel these feelings, because once we do that, that's when we can process them. That's when we can befriend them. And especially now in this day and age, I think what's is really important about tapping is that component of acceptance. Right now, life is overwhelming, right? So we're going to tap on anxiety and overwhelm, but this is to help soothe our body. But I think it's important to just be honest, like right now, the world is overwhelming, right? And if we try to fight that and think that we have to feel good all of the time and that we're not allowed to feel these feelings, then we constantly feel like we're failing. We constantly feel like we're not doing enough. But when we can say, you know what, I'm going to make space for all of my feelings, it is so easy to process, to navigate it, and to get back into center. So I want to be realistic with expectations in the sense that I think it's empowering to say, oh, right now life is overwhelming. So my job isn't to change my life to be less overwhelming. It's to change myself to feel stronger and more resilient, because that's the only thing that we have control of right now with everything that's going on. So with that, let's have an experience together, okay? So anxiety and overwhelm, let's, let me know in the chat, do we have teachers here? Is it, when you think about anxiety and overwhelm right now, what really comes to mind? Is it, the uncertainty around school? Dawn says family, school counselor. Okay, that's great. We have a teacher. Okay, so nurse, therapy, finances. All right, so I'm trying to think about something that we can all relate to. Let's talk about stress in the world, the uncertainty of the world. I mean, right now, with everything that's going on, it's like no one is happy. You either think, not to get political, but you either think the government's not doing enough or you think they're doing too much. It seems like everyone's fighting. Things are really intense. We have the wildfires. We have kids starting school. We have an incredible amount of uncertainty, a lot of turmoil in this country. And so let's take a second to kind of honor this moment in history that we're in. I mean, we are in a difficult moment that our generations ahead of us are going to look back at this moment. So let's do some tapping to just honor the anxiety of this moment, and to give ourselves permission to relax within this. So let's start by taking a nice deep breath in together. So everyone inhale and exhale. Now check in with yourself. And when you think about the world, the weight of the world, all of the uncertainty, the fighting, the anxiety, the news, notice what really stands out. Maybe it's something in particular that's worrying you. And notice when you think about that, where do you hold it in your body? Does it feel like a pressure in your chest? Maybe it's a tightness in your throat or in your stomach or shoulders. Just check in with your body and notice, where am I holding this tension? Okay, and I want you to give that tension a number from 0 to 10. So 10 being really tight, lots of pressure. 0 being you feel totally calm. Where are you on the 0 to 10 scale? And now that you have that number, let's take another deep breath in and exhale. We're going to tap together. So just follow along with me. We're going to tap on the side of the hand, and you can repeat after me, either out loud or in your mind. Even though I'm experiencing all of this anxiety, and I'm holding it in my body, I honor all of my feelings. Even though the world is hurting, and I take on this sense of overwhelm, I accept all of these feelings and I give my body permission to relax. And we say the setup statement one more time. So again, giving a voice to how we feel, even though I've been feeling anxious and overwhelmed. I have so much on my plate. And the world feels so uncertain. I acknowledge how hard things have been. And I accept myself and all of these feelings. Now we're going to tap and we're going to give a voice to these feelings. So tapping on your eyebrow point, this overwhelm, side of the eye, all of this stress, under the eye, all of this fighting, under the nose, I can't read the news, under the mouth, without feeling overwhelmed. Collarbone, all the political fighting, under the arm, all of the fires, top of the head, so much conflict. Eyebrow, and I hold it in my body. Side of the eye, of course I'm stressed. Under the eye, we are living through troubling times. Under the nose, all of this stress and overwhelm. Under the mouth, I honor all of these feelings. Collarbone, and I'm doing the best I can. Under the arm, part of me feels like I have to be stressed. Top of the head, because so much is going on. Eyebrow, and there's so much uncertainty. Side of the eye, so I've been holding on to this stress. Under the eye, because part of me feels like it's the right thing to do. Under the nose, part of me feels like I have to worry. Under the mouth, because I care so deeply. Collarbone, part of me feels like I have to worry. Under the arm, because I care so deeply. Top of the head, but maybe I can make room. Eyebrow, for more ease. Side of the eye, maybe I can care deeply. Under the eye, and have more faith. Under the nose, maybe I can care deeply. Under the mouth, and have more courage. Collarbone, Maybe I can care deeply under the arm and have more faith in myself. Top of the head, it's safe to release this stress. Eyebrow, right now and right here. Side of the eye, I am safe. Under the eye, right now and right here. Under the nose, it's safe to relax. Under the mouth, I give my body and mind permission. Collarbone, to take a break. Under the arm, releasing this tension in my body. Top of the head, feeling safe and present in this moment. All right, now take a nice deep breath in. And exhale. And just take a moment to just connect with your body. I like to move my shoulders and notice what came up for you. Maybe with that tapping, you're feeling a little more relaxed, you're feeling more at ease. Maybe something spiked up, maybe you got clear on what it is really that's been bothering you. Just notice how you feel. And if you'd like in the comments, give me your number before and after. And let me know if you experience anything, whether yawning, your body relaxing, or maybe even a little more tension if you got clear on what's bothering you. So we have a 7 to a 4, a 10 to a 6. Dawn said, I cried, which is so powerful. 8 to 6, 7 to 4, 8 to 4, 9 to 2, 8 to 4, 7 to 5. I love you guys writing in. This is amazing. So really we're seeing that we're cutting it down by almost half. We're moving it by a few points. This is why measuring is so important, because say, Joyce, you went from a 6 to a 3. That is so powerful to know that in just a few minutes on your own, you can go down a few points. And if you're even talking about someone who's going from a 6 to a 3 or an 8 to a 4, when you have that difference in how you feel, you walk differently, you speak differently, and you have more energy to take that next step. So I think it's really important to celebrate every tiny shift. And it also, when you're working with students and they measure, it encourages them to keep doing it, to try. Like, oh my goodness, I went from a 6 to a 3. I cut it down by half in just a few minutes. I'm gonna try to do this again. So Carolyn says, I feel like I need to worry because someone has to show concern. This is something that I brought up in this tapping meditation because I see it a lot with caregivers, teachers, those of us who care deeply. And I have always been the child that was extra sensitive. And I feel like for those of you who are in this profession, you probably have something similar. You feel your students, you feel what's going on. And we live in a society that doesn't value that enough. We think, oh, I shouldn't cry, I shouldn't be so upset. But it really is amazing to be able to feel and to care so much. But this is when it gets dangerous. We have this belief that if I don't worry, it means I don't care. And the problem with that is when we're constantly worrying and looking at the worst case scenario and looking at the worst things, those are not the moments when we are creative, when we're innovative. Those are the moments when we begin to lose our power. Instead of feeling a little more calm and saying, in this moment, what do I have control of? What can I do to serve? Because right now, reading the news and stressing out or writing a comment on Facebook, that's not contributing to the world. How can I contribute to my little world, right? And we can't undervalue that little world. We can't undervalue that student, that person, that interaction. I mean, this is how we begin to start changing, is by being able to calm ourselves, to give ourselves permission to relax so we can see how can we be a force for good? How can I be a force for good in this moment? And worry never brings us there. But I know it's tricky because sometimes when you feel like you don't know what to do, worrying at least feels proactive, but it's just a delusion, right? So we have to really call ourselves out on those moments of, am I being a force for good? Is this helping? Or can I give myself permission to have some faith, to have some trust, to focus on what I can control? And I think in this time more than ever, it's important and it's powerful. I've been doing tapping on this on my own, but to tap into, for lack of a better word, our ancestors, all right? If you look back at your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, they lived through some pretty crazy things, right? Whether it was poverty, whether it was sickness. I mean, the world has changed a lot, and it's really easy to always look at the bad. But when you think about our ancestors, we can think about what they've gone through and that type of resiliency. The reason that you are alive is because you come from survivors. You come from the strongest of the strong. And so to be able to tap into that, I find to be so empowering during these times that feel so different, is to actually, instead of focusing so much on the future, look at the past and find strength there. So Laura says, yes, I've been remembering my grandparents and the Depression and the World Wars, and they survived and thrived too. Absolutely. Angie says, is there a reason we only did the side of the hand at the very beginning? Yeah, so traditional tapping, we only start at the side of the hand, and then we tap on the rest of the points, and it kind of goes a circle through your body. I don't have the exact reason why that is the case, but it definitely is incredibly, it makes it just simpler to go through. They're all really great points though. So Scarlett says, remember, difficulty is actually an opportunity for growth. Absolutely.
I mean, how we're shaped and molded, if we remember that, we're shaped and molded as human beings by our thoughtful response to what's happening in our lives. And really, when you think about it, when you look back in your life, when did you make the biggest leaps in your personal growth? It was most likely facing pretty significant challenges or roadblocks or even trauma and tragedy. I mean, I know that for myself for sure. And there's actually a name for it. It's called post-traumatic growth. Science tells us that human beings are really wired to rise to the occasion. And the most common effects of difficulty are resilience, strength, and growth. Those are the most common outcomes of humans facing difficulty. We're created to rise to the occasion, and we have to remember that. I think our negative bias and focusing on the negative, like when you think about the neuroscience of our brains are like Velcro for negative experiences, right? We remember them, we focus on the negative, and they're like Teflon for the good ones. They bounce off of us. But we need to remember that we are wired to grow through difficulty, and it's what research says. And so I think that just, you know, the ability to rise to the occasion and the understanding, by the way, and this really helped me really early on in the tragedy, to be aware that my every move was modeling and teaching my younger son, my surviving son, how to handle stress, anxiety, difficulty, roadblocks, challenges, all the way up to tragedy and trauma for the rest of his life. I was teaching him in the moment. He was watching everything that I did. And I think that that's really important that we realize that, because when we're aware that what we do every single day, and by the way, only 40% of our communication is verbal, the rest of it is energy, right? And gesticulation and facial expression, they're watching. Kids know. And so they're watching us. We are their leaders. They want to see that we're feeling safe and secure. And that's another reason why it's really important to introduce tapping into your life, because as you see, it's pretty phenomenal. It doesn't take a long time, and it does reduce your stress and anxiety, and it helps you then even more rise to the occasion, so you can literally be there, and you're literally shaping and molding your kids and your students, and giving them skills and tools for the rest of their life.
Absolutely. And this is something that, you know, someone just asked, how often do you recommend tapping? Is there a time when you're stressed or healthy? Or so listen, right now, this is the time to make it a daily practice, right? Before, I used to be what I would joke around and say I'm an SOS tapper. Like, I would only, when things were really bad, that's when I would finally get to tapping. But right now, with everything that's going on, making it a daily practice is really important, especially if you're having any trouble sleeping or anxiety when you wake up. The mornings or the evenings are a really great time to just spend 10 minutes. For anyone who is a teacher or a mental health practitioner, if you are serving someone else, we're giving free app memberships to anyone who's serving someone else. So we'll give you guys that link. We might have to email it to you, but this is the reason I love the app so much, is because you can just spend 10 minutes and be guided to do that. And so it has to be a daily practice. Now, Scarlett talked about the negativity bias. I mean, you have to think, just thinking about it in a simple term, if you're outside and there's just beautiful flowers and there's a lion behind you, what are you going to pay attention to? We are wired to look at the worst case scenario, what's dangerous to us. And our brain is always going to do that. So our brain is always going to look at the worst case scenario. When we go on social media, our brain will be attracted to the worst story. It's just the way that we're wired. We're not going to change that. But what we have to do in this world is how to work with that, because we're so overstimulated by information that if we don't take control ourselves, then what tends to happen is that this other narrative takes control, and we feel stress and stress and stress and anxiety because the news story that you click on is the worst headline. And I'm not saying that it's all fake, but what I'm saying is that how can you thrive in your life when you're constantly having this outside narrative, regardless of what it's saying, controlling your emotions? So what you have to do is find a way to stay informed, you know, to be a responsible citizen, but to know, oh, I'm getting to that place where all I'm feeling is anxious and this isn't serving myself or my community. So we have to be proactive in this. You don't tap once and then suddenly you fix something. This is something that we have to do because we're navigating this world where we're constantly overstimulated, especially now. So a few comments. So Stacy wrote, I did the You Are Enough challenge last month. It was a 1-week challenge and it brought up a lot of past stuff. That is still challenging me, cleansing through mental work. That's the thing. Sometimes we're invited to look within. We start to tap, and how many people with this pandemic have been so busy before, and all of a sudden we're stuck at home and we have to face the things that we've been distracting ourselves from, right? This is the opportunity to do that work, because those things are impacting you subconsciously. They are impacting your health and your relationships. So I think it's important to celebrate when those things come up. Stacy says, I'm an occupational therapist and I've been really enjoying the app. Is it better to focus on one area at a time? I find myself drawn to so many different areas. So Stacy, you're the best person to answer that question when it comes to tapping. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. If you start to do a lot of different tapping meditations and you feel a little bit overwhelmed because you're taking up too much, then that's the sign to back off. But if you feel better, then keep doing that. If you're not feeling better, don't keep doing that. So there's no clear answer except just following your own intuition and how you feel.
And also, Jessica, when you tap, that's a question that I have too. Can you tap on multiple things at once to be efficient? Like a headache, a backache, and I don't know, anxiety.
Yeah, well, You know, there's this wonderful practitioner, Lindsay Kenny, and she once taught me this technique where you imagine a bag. And if you have too many things, you imagine yourself putting all of those things in a bag. And then you tap while you focus on that bag. Now, for many people, that in itself can be really powerful. It lightens the load. They see the bag becoming smaller. For other people, it is important to get very specific on that one thing, right? And the way we figure out where to start is you always want to start with your most pressing issue. What is the thing out of everything that's really challenging, that's really bothering you? And that's a great place to start. Because kind of when you knock down that big tree, it knocks down a lot of little trees with it. So, you know, when it comes to tapping, there's no clear answers of everyone needs to do it this way and everyone needs to focus on one thing or another. It really is about giving yourself the experience and noticing what works for you, because everybody is so different. Somebody asked earlier, someone said that they felt like the tapping itself was just too stimulating. You can tap, you can stimulate the points by using pressure. Instead of using pressure this way, you can also rub the points as well. This is a great strategy if you're doing some of the tapping before bed. So yes, that's what you can do if you don't like the tapping itself.
And Jessica, you actually wrote a couple of books, and we're talking about tapping for stress and anxiety, but you can tap for almost anything. Can you tell us about some of the books that you yourself have written and that the Tapping Solution has out?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I wrote a book about weight loss and body confidence. I never in a million years thought that I would ever write a book that had the title weight loss in it, because I started my first diet when I was 13 years old and have always been miserable. Even as a teenager, the fluctuations were insane. And it was just this crazy pattern of gaining a lot of weight and then doing a diet and, you know, this vicious cycle. And so tapping, I learned tapping and don't want to use it on weight loss because I think that's too far-fetched. Weight loss is just about motivation and willpower. And I just was born with not enough willpower. But as I began to learn more about tapping and more about the emotions, I began to see the patterns I had. I began to notice that when I was anxious, I would turn to food, that I would be so strict in my life and so hard on myself in different areas that food was often the only time I had a break, the only time I got to experience pleasure. And there was a lot of beliefs wrapped around my weight loss, where even when I lost weight, it never was enough. So I really was on a journey to say, all right, I'm going to stop. I'm not going to do a single diet. I'm going to stop focusing on food. I'm going to stop focusing on exercise. And I'm just going to look at the emotional aspects of my relationship with my body. And what I realized is when I did that, I began to value my body. And it's easy to take care of something you value. I hated my body so much that I never wanted to spend time taking care of it. But I learned how to love my body before anything changed. And when I was able to do that, it's easier to take care of something that you value. And then the weight loss, I mean, I don't even care, right? Like it just becomes a side effect. But so often the struggle, the emotional struggle we have with our body is really about our self-worth. And that was the journey I was on. And then I led over 10,000 women through a similar journey on an online program. And then I wrote a book about it called The Tapping Solution for Weight Loss and Body Confidence. But I wanted to share the personal story about that book, simply because there's so much weight loss stuff out there. And I just think it's so important to change the conversation because it's so much more than that. But I would have never picked up a book that said, love yourself and feel better in your body. I wouldn't have bought in that book. I wanted the weight loss. And that is a side effect of taking better care of yourself. But I'm very, very proud of that book, The Tapping Solution for Weight Loss and Body Confidence. And then the second book I wrote is The Tapping Solution to Create Lasting Change. So oftentimes we really push and we stress ourselves to change. We want something to change. We kind of use that motivation and that energy without looking at some of the beliefs that might leave us sabotaging our success. So this is for people who have a dream, they take 2 steps forwards and 3 steps back. If you feel like you're sabotaging yourself, you're hesitant, this is really a book to kind of look at what some of those blocks are and how to use tapping. One of the best books is The Tapping Solution, which is the first book by my brother, simply The Tapping Solution, and that's all of the basics. Yeah, and then our biggest passion is the app right now, because there's so many free things available. We unlock it for all teachers and caregivers, and we're really just seeing amazing results. And I feel like right now, more than ever, we need to start using technology for us, because right now it's working against us in a lot of ways. So I'm really proud of that app. And Scarlett, a question for you. So we've had over 100 people live, over 300 people are going to be watching this recording. I think it's so important. I'm doing this for free because first of all, the people who are showing up are extraordinary people that are giving. Also because I love Scarlett and I love the foundation and the work that she does. And so Scarlett, can you tell us, if someone enjoyed their time tonight and they want to make a donation to the Choose Love Foundation, they want to help all the work that you're doing to help children, how can someone do that?
Oh, well, thank you. I love you too, Jessica. In fact, I love your whole family, and especially Enzo. But thank you for saying that. Actually, we give the program away, as the educators know on here, at no cost, because these are essential life skills that can transform and even save lives. And I know that you do a lot of that. You've supported us so much with the tapping solution, Jessica, you and your family, and the tapping solution. People, if you would like to give a donation, I will tell you that we have gotten to the point where we offer this program to one child for an entire year for about 33 cents, which is really incredible. The more kids we get it to, the lower that goes. I want to do it for less than a cent, but that actually means that if everybody donated $20, we could get it out to over 5,000 kids. So it costs about $20 to offer the Choose Love Movement program to one class for 1 year. And so if you loved what you saw tonight, and we're so happy to love you all and serve you all, and you would like to give a donation, then you can go to our website, and there's a little button that you can click that says donate, and that would be very much appreciated, because when I started this, I created the Choose Love Movement to fill in the gaps, right? Because I just assumed that everybody was already doing social emotional learning. I mean, there's so much research behind it. And come to find out, less than 10% of US schools are actually doing it in the correct way. And so it turned out to be a much larger thing. And by word of mouth, we're now being taught in all 50 states. In fact, we're the #1 SEL program in a handful of states in over 100 countries. So we are working all the time to love and support our superhero educators and your students. This is the #1 way to have a safe school, because it's the #1 way to positively impact a school's culture. And so if you guys want to make a donation, that would be awesome. We really appreciate that. And we also appreciate when people talk about what they've seen, what they've heard, talk about the Choose Love Movement. This has all been spreading by word of mouth since day one. And look at what you all have created and what you all have done. So I just want to thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you for joining us. I love you so much, and I love tapping, and I love sharing it. It's so important, and this is such a valuable group that you've shared it with tonight, and they're going to go tell other people, and they're going to share it with those that they work with and children, and we're just so blessed to be able to do things like this. So I want to thank you so much, and thank everybody that's listening and that joined in tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Scarlett. Thank you, everybody. And another reminder, Scarlett, we can email them, right, with the link to get a free app subscription if they're a teacher.
Yes, yes. Actually, I asked them to email us if they're an educator or caregiver, and we will email the information to them for the app. Thank you so much for that. That's so generous.
Wonderful, guys. Thank you so much, Scarlett. Thank you again. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.